What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 27 of the Steam Deck podcast, Flip Screen Games weekly podcast, all about Valve's hot new handheld, the Steam Deck. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined as always by very good friends and co-hosts, Mr. Steven Radford.
Hello, hello.
And returning to the show, Mr. Max Wright.
Full steam ahoy.
Oh, okay, all right, okay. Dang.
I hated that. I actually.
No, I liked it. You know, was it a corny dad joke? Yes, but hey, there's a place for that. There's time and place for it. Speaking of time and place, it's time, and it's both the time and the place to talk about Steam Deck. So we're gonna jump into our first story here. There is a new 2TB SSD compatible with the Steam Deck now available. How are we feeling about this?
It's exciting. Cool. It's like so the world's first ever one came out last year from Micron, but the power draw was too high. So there was that notice that I think it was Lawrence Yang posted saying that please don't put these in your Steam Deck. But Western Digital's come out with one now. Retails at $299 US dollars if you can find one for $299 US dollars. And it looks to be completely compatible. There's a couple of people over on Reddit. They've already done the transplant and popped it into their Steam Deck. And it should be a pretty straightforward process if you're comfortable cracking open the back of your Steam Deck and chucking on a restore image. It should be pretty straightforward. If you've done something like replacing Joy-Con sticks before, probably easier than that because it's like Phillips head screws and you just kind of crack it open with a guitar pick. So I may end up getting one at some point because I would love to just have it all internal rather than on a SD card, and for no reason other than the fact that it just seems nice. Like the SD card offers the same level of performance, really.
Well, then you can also have an SD card to dual boot into Windows on, and you don't have to worry about what's on it. You can just have a purely Windows SD card, and then everything else can be on there, which is handy.
That's true.
Yeah. Word of warning using SD cards for Windows, though, you will end up frying them. So make sure you're okay with that because you shouldn't run an operating system off an SD card, really. It's okay for like short-term solution. And when Valve eventually comes out with dual booting, I think that's probably when I'll buy and either get a 1 terabyte or a 2 terabyte drive so I can have 512 gigabyte partition of Windows and then have SteamOS taking up the rest of it.
I've lost 2 media servers to fried hard drives in Raspberry Pis. Also, fun fact, the company I work for, there's a company we hire all of our very, very important care home management devices, the emergency stuff, all of the important stuff. And I was like, oh, can you just point me to that so I can have a look? And it was running on a Raspberry Pi with an SD card running in. And I was like, that is just the most
that SD card's going to melt at some point.
And they sell them by the boatload. So whistleblowing, here we go.
Well, hey, you know what? If anybody wants to use us as a source on that story, there you go. You got the scoop here. So yeah, I this is very cool. I think it's kind of a bummer because this is definitely a thing I'll never do. As much as I would love to have a upgraded, beefier SSD in my Steam Deck. Yeah, I'm not taking that thing apart. I'm just not gonna do it.
Why?
Because I'm not gonna do it. I'm afraid to do it. That's the reality. Is that like I'm afraid I'm gonna pop it open and I'm gonna screw something up.
I feel like the SD. Is there anything over it? Is there a heatsink over it or anything like that, or is it purely the SD, the SSD? Is it just like a laptop where you crack open the back and it's just there waiting for you, or the PS5 where you crack open the bottom and it's just like here's the slot, or is it more involved than that? Are you removing bits and lifting bits off and then moving the battery and stuff? How does it work?
As far as I'm aware, you should always unplug the battery. But as far as I'm aware, it's literally take the back off, undo the single screw that holds down the NVMe drive, and you just slot it out and you slot a new one in instead.
Yeah, so it's just like replacing an SSD and an NVMe drive in anything, really. Then, so that sounds pretty easy.
That's like 3 steps, though. I don't know about all that. You tell me I gotta open this thing, I gotta disconnect the battery, I gotta unscrew a thing and put a new thing. I don't know. That seems like a lot.
Damn, that's sheer laziness.
You call it laziness. I call it not wanting to destroy my Steam Deck. It's not a cheap replacement.
I think you'll be fine. The thing that's most likely to break would be some of the plastic clips holding the back housing on. But then that's an excuse to get some of those. Have you seen the cool new JSOX back panels in the what were they called? The Fruitastics or whatever, the N64.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
doing all of those colors, like backplate, so you can have that semi-translucent Steam Deck if you wanted to.
All right, that's kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie
Yeah,
to
it
you,
is.
that's pretty cool. All right, maybe I'll do it. We'll see.
It does. It does look really nice, but I do. It's annoying that you can you get like the full front of it as well, or I'm pretty sure it's all like welded onto the front, right? You can't replace the whole shell. like
Yeah,
you
they
can on
haven't done the
Switch.
front panel. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a
you can't get
shame.
that. Replacing the front is the most difficult thing to
Yeah,
replace
well, the
on
screen's
that.
laminated on, right? I assume.
The
No,
black.
the screen's not laminated on, as
Is it
far as I'm
not?
aware.
Oh,
Because if
okay.
you push the bottom of your screen on the Steam Deck, it'll go in.
Don't make.
If
No,
you
no, no,
push it in
no.
the center of the bottom.
No, no. I draw a line. I've got to draw a line somewhere, and that's it. We found my line.
I feel like the black front with a colored back would still look really cool though.
Yeah, me too. The like smoky, you remember like the smoky gray one? I think that would look cool. I'd also really love like the grape colored one that they did.
Sure.
And the
Yeah.
tangerine, I think, would look really cool.
Yeah,
like
that would be
that
nice.
orange and the black would
I mean,
look really cool together.
I think even the white and having like a two-tone kind of thing would be nice. You know,
Mhm.
I could definitely see that being cool. Or like maybe you go for like a black translucent back so that it's like the Pro controller where you have like parts that are translucent and then parts that are like the matte finish.
I don't really like that much on the Pro controllers. Like some bits of it are nice, but like some of the special editions, I'm just like, that's trash.
I don't like the special editions, but I think the standard one I do like the look of it. But yeah, I mean,
the colors JSOX has got brown, crystal, purple, red, blue, and green. And the green's like that turquoisey green
okay,
that they used to always do. That looks like, you remember the original like iMac color?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like kind of like
Mhm.
that color.
But come on, who's buying brown?
Brown is not really like brown. It's like smoky color.
Like a
I'll
charcoal?
send a link over in our group
I want to look
chat.
at the. I
And
want to look at this brown console. Name
it's
me
not
another
really brown. It looks
console.
to me like the Switch Pro controller. At least that, like, I kind of feel like that's what it looks like. Anyway,
Yeah,
I'll paste it
smoky
into the Google
brown.
Doc here.
Okay,
you can
okay,
have it.
yeah, that's not brown. No, it's like translucent black.
Oh yeah, it's just smoky's probably a good word for it. That's actually really
Yeah.
nice. I love seeing the internals of stuff.
I
It's
do
like
too.
you seen those
The
the
crystal
skin
one's
you
so
can
cool.
get. The skin you can get, the J-Rig Everything skin that remind me, who does all the skins?
You can get
and all
one
of
for
the
the D brand one as well. And
D-brand, thank you,
even
that's
get
who I
like
mean.
you even get the stickers for the trackpads, which show
Yep.
like the underneath of the trackpad.
Yeah,
That
so
combined
that's
with like the transparent back would actually look really, really cool.
yes, I've always wanted to get like the J-Rig Everything, I can't really call it like X-ray, like phone cases, and they do the whole sort of a whole range of stuff. But every time I go to buy it, I realise how expensive D-brand stuff is and how easy I would just immediately mess it up. So I just don't.
Yeah, sounds like my attitude towards this stuff. I always look at it longingly over, and I'm like, that's so cool. Too bad I'll never do it.
Yeah.
Do you not have a friend like nearby that can help you? I know DJ came over and helped you build your PC.
He might.
Do you rope him in?
He might be able to do it.
to
You know what? My friend
do it?
Andy could do it too. He could. Yeah, I could. All right, we'll see. We'll see, gang. Jury's out on
Here
that
we
one.
go. Next week,
Next
big
week.
episode.
I combines it's like 3 different crazy colors. Like I got the whole thing. I'm gonna lower it. You know, I'm gonna get my Steam Deck lowered, put some cool rims on it. It's gonna be a good time. But speaking of new stuff coming to Steam Deck, Steve, you put this in here that there's a SMT Toggle coming soon. And when I asked you what that meant, you said you'd explain it on the show. And Max and I both were like, Shin Megami Tensei? Is that potentially? You said no. That's about as far as we got.
No.
So what is an SMT
Can you
Toggle?
imagine that? Like, you just put it on and then it just comes up with the theme song for Shin Megami Tensei or something. That'd be quite cool.
That'd be neat.
I
I'm
don't
into
know.
that.
I don't know if it's actually a toggle or not coming. So Plagman over on Twitter tweeted, there are performance improvements in the pipe on workloads that need SMT disabled to perform well. Those are being tested now and will release as part of the updated kernel we're working on for SteamOS 3.5. Whether that means we're going to get a toggle or not, I don't know. I really hope we do. So SMT is simultaneous multi-threading. And if anyone watched my video about the GameCube emulation, you'll remember that if you turn down the number of threads, that means that those threads can run at a higher clock speed. And so some games perform a lot better on either a single thread or just a couple of threads. And it would be really great if we could have a toggle per game in the performance settings, so we don't need to use an external plugin like Power Tools. Power Tools is fantastic, but the more we can get built into SteamOS and it becomes more stable, we don't have to rely on plugins being updated or Decky not breaking when an update comes out to Steam,
Yeah.
then that would be great.
Where I'm using the Steam Deck a little bit less at the moment, because I'm sort of just swapping between other things a lot. Every time I go and turn it on, I feel like, okay, I've lost all of my Decky plugins. I need to update this, and then I need to update that bit, and then okay, cool. Now, and it's sort of like with the Decky stuff, it's all becoming a little bit too much like micromanagement that I didn't want to do. But I'm using it a lot, and it's sort of just something I'm just doing naturally. It feels fine, but the more that gets baked in, like you say, just the easier it's going to be, and the less like hard work it's going to feel to get sort of these little features happening.
Yeah, Decky's had a big update recently, so their website's had a bit of a refresh, and the downloader itself has had a real refresh. Used to be a command line command that you had to do. Now you download a desktop installer, you double click it, it will ask if you want to install the pre-release version or the stable version. You can select between those two. And you can run it again to uninstall as well. So it's actually really nice and easy. I'll probably do an updated Decky tutorial at some point, because it's been a while since I touched on that.
That's much easier. I actually skipped all of that and just used when they updated EmuDeck, and they now have a tool in there where you can just install Power Tools immediately, and I found that very easy to use.
Yep, that's the exact same
super
thing.
easy.
So that will install the stable version of Decky. So that's another great option as well.
Nice. So we'll definitely keep you posted on this as the story develops, and I'm sure as soon as we're able to take advantage of it, Steve will be happy to break it down for you in a video. So we've got a couple more things to talk about today, but before we get into that, let me remind you that this episode of the Steam Deck Podcast is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of February. They are, of course, Anthony Gonzalez, Christian Oliveria, Christopher Valenz, Earth Visitor, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, a.k.a. Asobi, Mary Berry, Ty the Dude, Wakahula, and Zaid Ida. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. Y'all are the realest to the real, and we greatly appreciate your support of this and all of our sister shows. If you want to become a Patreon supporter just like they did, get your name read on the air, get the show early, or a bunch of other perks and goodies, you can head over to patreon.com/flipscreengames or head over to our website, flipscreen.games, where you can find links to all the places you can get involved in the show, regardless of if you have any money to toss our way or not. Please make sure you write into the show questions at flipscreen.games. Come join the Discord, however you choose to get involved. We appreciate you tuning in to this week's episode of the Steam Deck Podcast. Let's jump in to the question block, because we've got a bunch of good ones here to talk about. This first one comes from Dev Timmy over on the Discord, who wrote in and said, which do you play more, Switch or Deck? Would you play future Switch games on Deck if Nintendo don't release them officially? Do you think Nintendo should bow out / pull a Sega and go software only and let Valve take over the handheld market? I'd love to play Tears of the Kingdom on my Steam Deck legally and officially.
It's a lot of questions here.
A lot of questions.
To break down.
I gotta say, he's biting in on Asobi's patented. This is a 3-questioner. Come on, this is three totally separate questions. It's fine. It's fine. You know, I mean, that's the thing. I think Asobi's been kind enough to take the formula open source so anybody can use it. But you know.
Oh yeah. He's not gonna get litigious on anyone.
No. But I'm just saying, credit where credit's due, right? So to answer the first question, it's honestly funny. Max, you said earlier that you've been spending a little less time on your Steam Deck lately than normal. I think if you had asked this question, you know, maybe a month ago, or at any time in the last 6 to 8 months, I definitely would have said Steam Deck. But as of late, my Switch has been back in heavy rotation because I've been playing Fire Emblem Engage over there, and there's a couple other games on the horizon, obviously, like you said, Tears of the Kingdom, and a few others that I'm looking forward to putting some time into this year, and I will end up talking about this on Nintendo Noise sooner than later, I would imagine, but a friend of mine actually just bought me a copy of Pokemon Scarlet, which I famously missed out on last year because I didn't want to play a broken, buggy game while I was playing my Game of the Year. So I imagine for at least, you know, the first half of this year, it's probably going to be a bit of a flip, and I'll be spending more time with my Switch, and my deck will probably mostly be keeping up with Persona for our Persona 5 game club, as well as, whatever other indies or whatnot come along. But yeah, I've been spending more time with my Switch lately than I have in the last, year and change combined.
I think these questions like this, which I think come up since the Steam Deck came out, have come up a lot of like, oh, why would you want to play on a Switch when a Steam Deck does X, Y, Z, or um, oh, why would you want to play on the Steam Deck because blah blah blah. But like, really, it comes down to what game's out when. What's coming out at the moment, what's available on what, and I'll sort of play things where I've had a PS5 for 2 years and I played 2 games on it last year and I sort of lent it away. But then 2 years ago, I played PS5 the entire year, like the first year it came out, and
Right.
the Switch I would have played like for played like for a lot of the first half of last year, and then the Steam Deck came out. I got my Steam Deck and I was playing a little bit less of that. Now I'm playing more PC right now, and sort of chopping and changing. There's not really like a conscious decision to be playing more or less of one or the other because it doesn't really matter. Personally, for me,
Yeah, I
right
think
now I'm
I'm the
playing my
same.
Switch. Right now with sort of Metroid Prime Remastered and getting back into Metroid Dread, and I've got some other games I want to catch up on the Switch. Like I've been playing a lot more of that. But I know that later down the line when Last of Us Part 1 comes out or Resident Evil 4 comes out and maybe even Jedi Survivor, I'll probably end up playing a lot more Steam Deck. So yeah, depends what's out.
I'm the same. Like, as we said, I think it was on last week's show where like we consider ourselves platform agnostic, and we'll get to that in another question. I just play where I can. I think if Nintendo games released on Steam Deck, or PC, I think I probably would choose to play them there rather than on the Switch. But I've just replaced the sticks in my Joy-Cons with GuillaKit sticks, just so I can play games that are coming out on Switch and only coming out on Switch this first half of the year. And I'm fine with that. Like, if Nintendo aren't going to change their model anytime soon, I don't think. I'm curious though, Max. It says you're currently playing Ryujinx on your status on Discord. So I would imagine that at some point you played some Switch games on Steam Deck. How did that go for you?
I have actually played. I can't believe that showed up. I was literally just I was just running an update on Metroid Dread on it to see how if I can get it running in 4K. I want something in 4K and I couldn't get it on the online, so I'm trying to get it myself on the Steam Deck. Sorry, on the PC. What's happening there? I have actually played a couple of games, Switch games on the Steam Deck. I tried Metroid Dread and that sort of ran fine, but not any better than it would do on the Switch. I've currently not found a game on the Steam Deck other than like native Steam stuff, like emulated stuff that plays better on the Steam Deck than the Switch. I haven't played Breath of the Wild or anything yet to try it out, but like some of the games that I've played, like Skyward Sword HD and Metroid Dread, pretty much are as good as they are on the Switch. But in some ways they're worse because it's trying to emulate it, and there are dips
Yeah.
every now and again that aren't on the Switch. So I think it's easy to say like, oh, I'll just play that Switch game on my Steam Deck, but I remember when I was trying to try out Pokemon before I sort of like actually committed to buying it, and that just wouldn't work. And I'm pretty sure it might work now, but it's not in a very stable state as far as I know. I struggled with trying to get Mario and Rabbids to run when that first came out. I was like, all right, let's give that a go, and I ended up buying the game on Switch and having a much better experience with much less effort than, oh, download this, okay, try it on Ryujinx, blah 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 blah. So yeah, I'd like to try Breath of the Wild, but I don't see like Tears of the Kingdom, for example,
Yeah, Breath of the
working any
Wild runs
better.
great in the Wii U version. You can play at 60 frames per second on your Steam Deck,
Yeah, okay.
which is the best way I think to play it. But yeah, I would never bother with Switch emulation while the Switch exists.
Yeah.
And the OLED screen on the Switch OLED looks like better
Oh
than
yeah.
the Steam Decks by a mile.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'll use that as a jumping off point to get into the second one. Like, would you play Switch games on deck if they were released officially? No, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I
would.
think I definitely wouldn't. I think unless there's a clear power benefit, right? Unless like the game would run better on the Steam Deck. I think like it would likely be an inferior experience because I do have an OLED Switch, right? And especially if we're talking about, a game like Tears of the Kingdom, I think playing that on Steam Deck would be a definitively worse experience for a couple of reasons. I mean, like I said, if I'm playing it in handheld, it's going to look better on an OLED screen than on the Steam Deck screen. That's probably the biggest flaw of the Steam Deck's hardware is that the screen is okay, right? It's not great. It's not ugly, but it's certainly not as nice as a high quality OLED screen.
I agree.
So there's that. Then I think with Tears of the Kingdom being a game that I think I will likely play a mixture of I'm playing it docked and then I pick it up and I want to take it on the go, or I want to go up and lay in bed, but I want to keep playing and chipping away at stuff in the open world. We've talked ad nauseum about how the docked quote unquote experience of the Steam Deck leaves quite a bit to be desired. It's certainly not a perfect seamless experience often. There is some hitches. There is, often, like, I told a story a couple weeks ago about how I set up my friend's dock at their house and then it just stopped working and I had to like troubleshoot it for like 30 minutes before it started working again.
And
I wasn't
everyone's
even
looking at you and you're getting sweaty and you're
Yep.
like, I promise guys, this is going to be, we're going to have loads of fun. Like
the
in,
last
like,
one.
20 minutes.
This will work. I promise. And then finally, like the third or fourth thing you try works, and you're not even really sure why it worked and why the other thing didn't work. And it's fiddly. And I think the while there are so many things that the Steam Deck does have over the Switch, the ease of use is something that it's just not comparable. So yeah, I fail to see how me playing it on the Steam Deck would make it a better experience, that is always the deciding factor for me about what games I play on Steam Deck versus
I think
anywhere else.
I think it fundamentally would be a better experience though, because there's no way Tears of the Kingdom's running at 60 FPS on the Switch, but it could easily on the Steam Deck if the Wii U version can emulate at 60 FPS, a native version would easily be able to play at 60 FPS, and I feel like that's a much better experience for me. It having like fluid gameplay and action and enjoying it at a higher frame rate for me would outweigh the benefits of playing it on the Switch. But I'm also okay to tinker with settings and mess around and do all of that stuff. I understand that a lot of people aren't. If you listen to this podcast, you probably are that kind of person who would be like, yeah, I'm happy to tinker with settings and options and things to kind of get the most out of it.
I have played many games on the Steam Deck in the way that you would play on a Switch, where, I play it on the Steam Deck wherever I might be. That save file goes onto the cloud. I pick it up on PC and I'm playing that in 4K on the PC, right? And that is nice when it works. And then there are games a lot of the time where that won't work. Dark Souls 3 doesn't have cloud saves for some reason. Anything using the EA app doesn't work. Anything where you're not using Steam to have the cloud saves doesn't work. Whereas on the Switch, that's a much more one-to-one seamless experience of literally you pop it in, you pick it up. There's no, okay, cool, save that, close it down, and Steam cloud's updated. Cool, now I can do it over here. You can do it without the internet. There are a lot of things going for that experience. However, if they were to release, like, let's say Tears of the Kingdom as the example, if they put that on Steam, I know one, I could get that cheaper because I know that places like CD keys exist and value is very important to me. Two, I know that I could get a similar experience between the two. I would take the hit in the OLED screen. I like to imagine in a world where Nintendo has done this, that maybe we're 200 years in the future and Valve has put an OLED screen on the Steam Deck 50 or whatever. So I think there has to be a few things that line up for me to want to do that. But like Pete, I do like that OLED screen and I like having the easiness of it. But I also, to jump into the next question, if that's okay with you guys, where he's asked, do you think Nintendo should bow out / pull a Sega and go software only, let Valve take over the handheld market? I really like the Switch hardware. You can talk, as much as you want about power, about outdated hardware, about mobile chips, yada, yada, yada. I just think that the Switch being as thin and small as it is, with a great big bright OLED screen, with Joy-Cons that slide off, and the things that you can do with that, motion controls and sharing it with a friend and all that sort of stuff. While there are flaws in that, I do think that the hardware overall is still very great. It's still like a unique piece of hardware, sorry, that I think actually, and this may offend some people, has more novelty and use case than the Steam Deck. The Steam Deck is very much a handheld PC, but the Switch just has so many more things going for it. And I also don't think that even if they did release their software on PC, I don't think the Steam Deck would overtake the Switch still, because the Switch still has going for it things like price. It has brand recognition. It has plug and play ability. There's no tinkering required to get anything to work, whereas the Steam Deck is, and at least for the foreseeable future, will always be like a a like a tinkerer's, what's the word I'm looking for?
It's an enthusiast device.
That's the word
Enthusiast.
I'm looking for. Enthusiast device.
Yeah.
There we go.
Like
Yes.
I think it's a device that exists for people that like to tinker and that want to, that want to have a non-traditional experience. Yeah,
Mhm.
which I think to me is like I kind of take this question as a joke.
Mhm.
If it is,
Yeah,
like
definitely.
if it is sincere, then no, right? Like,
Well, the second question does say Nintendo in tin, which I
yeah,
assume was tongue in cheek as well. So
sure.
Do you think this is like a possibility though? Because obviously we've seen Sony doing it, and it's clearly not cannibalized the PlayStation 5 sales. That's like on a trajectory to overtake the PS4. Do you think you could ever see Nintendo just looking at the competition, looking at Microsoft, looking at PlayStation, and going, you know what, it's working for those guys. Why don't we try and put some of our titles on PC and start with something smaller? Bring over something like a Pikmin or even Metroid Prime. Maybe bring Metroid Prime 4 over to PC before they bring over something big like Tears of the Kingdom.
I mean, never say never. Right? If you had asked me prior to Super Mario Run if I thought Nintendo would ever make mobile games, my answer would have been no, right? So, I think trying to predict what companies are going to do that far out, right? Like to be like, "Oh, they would never do this," is like, I that's a very like it's a losing bet, right? Because more often than not, like those kinds of changes are going to come based on like how the market evolves, and like looking at the current state of Nintendo, I can't really see why they would, because I think we've talked a lot about how there are a significant number of PC gamers where the only console that they own is a Switch. You know, they would never buy an Xbox or a PlayStation, but they will buy a Nintendo Switch because they want a handheld machine to play indies with when they're on the go, or maybe when they're in bed or whatever, and they want to play, the whatever selection of Nintendo software they care about enough to play. I know,
And it's only the Nintendo software though that's going to cater to now. Because if I feel like if you're a big PC player, the obvious choice now is a Steam Deck. You've already got the big library. You can take those games on the go. If you're playing at home, you can just do the Steam Link thing and stream it from your big PC to your handheld.
depends how on the
And
go you want to
it
be,
really,
really.
yeah, it does depend how on the go you want to be. But the indies come to PC before they come to Switch usually. Like the big hot indie game of last year, Vampire Survivors, it's still not on Switch. The only way you can play it on the go is on Steam Deck or on mobile, and mobile doesn't have the DLC. It's not a great experience in a vertical orientation.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much I agree that it's like the obvious choice, just because I know a lot of PC players that own a Switch and play your Zeldas and your Pokemon and Mario or whatever on it, and have no interest in getting a Steam Deck. None of my friends that
Mhm.
are PC first players are interested in the Steam Deck, which I was surprised by. I figured that they would think of it as like a solution that was relevant to them, but I think a lot of them, you know, I don't know. Maybe this is anecdotal to the people I know. Maybe this does speak to some like market reality, but like I feel like a lot of the people I know who are like PC gamers first, like are not necessarily people who travel a lot, right? So like I know a lot of them bought a Switch for the sake of travel, and they're like, well, I don't go anywhere anymore, or I don't go anywhere anyway, so I don't need it, right? Or I have a gaming laptop and that's my mobile gaming solution, so why would I get a Steam Deck, right? And
Yeah.
I have a powerful gaming laptop that's more powerful than a Steam Deck, things like that. So that's the thing is like I think that it's such a interesting equation of like who is the perfect use case for the Steam Deck, because I feel like like Steve, right? Like you weren't a PC gamer before you had Steam Deck. Like I like had moved away from the PC ecosystem until I picked up a Steam Deck, Like I think Max is the outlier among the three of us of like, oh yeah, like I actively play stuff on PC and I also have a use case for Steam Deck. I don't think that person doesn't exist, but I wonder how many of them already have another solution or, are just less willing to invest in something like that because they don't see the need for it. Whereas Nintendo does always have the differentiator of exclusive software, right? And like, if you want to play Smash, if you want to play Mario Kart, if you, whatever, right? Like, a lot of the best local co-op games, a lot of the, those IP that maybe you grew up with, like Zelda or Pokemon, right? Like Nintendo will always have that card to play. On top of the fact that, to Max's point, right, like the Switch is an attractive piece of hardware, and it's old now, and I think like it's kind of cool to like talk about how it's past its prime and like we're ready to move on from it. We talk about that a lot on Nintendo Noise. I think that's a big part of why we fell in love with the Steam Deck. But I don't think that changes like how there's a reason that Nintendo has become the dominant player in handheld, and I don't know that anybody can really compete with them, and I don't really think that's what Valve's goal is anyway. And like I'm sure they would.
No,
I
don't think that's what their goal is. Yeah, I don't think that's what their goal is. My question was, do you think it's ever going to happen? Because I don't think it's going to cannibalize their sales. I do think that they'll continue to be the dominant player in handheld. There's no real competition from the other platform holders. PlayStation and Xbox show no signs of wanting to get into handheld.
No.
The Vita was a disaster. So I kind of see them just having that kind of stronghold on the handheld market. And therefore, does it make sense for them to just release them on PC and kind of collect up the players who
I don't know.
maybe didn't buy Zelda the first time around for $60, but will buy it this time around for $60 on PC, or did play it, but now they want to play it at 120 frames per second in 4K on their PC natively with like DLSS or FSR2 or whatever it may be.
I don't see them making that investment because it's not like you can just push a button and export a PC version, right? Like Sony bought an entire studio to focus on putting their games on PC, and like I don't see Nintendo investing in that, and I don't think that they care about like being like, oh, let us appeal to the segment of gamers that only play on PC and refuse to buy a console. I think their attitude is, our software is compelling enough that if you really want to, you'll buy a Switch. And if price is a concern, why don't you buy the Switch Lite? It's only $200. Like it's so cheap to get into their ecosystem. I think their mentality is, we'll get you eventually.
I don't think that. Just this is to answer the third question. Sorry, I think we sort of merged them with the questions there. I don't think that Nintendo would ever bow out, because look at how many Switches they've sold, and also look at the amount of software that are on the Switch, right? Even if you take Nintendo software out of the equation, there's nearly a billion. Just Nintendo software. I mean, here there's nearly a billion overall games sold on the Switch, right? Pieces of software, and all of those are 20% to Nintendo. I don't know what the actual margin is, but every single one of those sales, 20% of that goes to Nintendo. So it's not just about their own person in their first party games. If they were to just bow out and just go software only, they'd only ever be selling their games, and they'd only be making the money they make on those, as opposed to right now they sell a huge variety of software, and they're getting 20% from every single sale of that. And then you also, the top selling games are all their own games. I don't think it's gonna work. Can I quickly jump back, actually, Pete? I had a thought earlier, and I was waiting for a point to add anecdotal evidence to your anecdotal evidence. I know way more personally. I know way more PC games than I do Nintendo gamers. I am the Nintendo guy in sort of all of my friend groups. None of them, they might have bought a Switch and played the old game, but I am the only one who consistently plays Nintendo games, right? But I have a lot of friends who are PC gamers. They all built their own PCs. They're all sort of like, they play only on PC. However, I know way more people with Switches than I do with Steam Decks, because other than you two and myself, I know nobody else with a Steam Deck. Other than and our friend Chloe. That's it. I don't know anyone else in real life. I've never met another person in real life that has a Steam Deck.
I need to introduce you to my dad.
I'd love to meet Andy. I'd love to meet Andy.
I want to meet. No, if Max gets to meet Andy first, I'm gonna be upset. And I know it's easier. You live in the same country.
Max is more likely to meet him.
But like, come on.
That's it.
Anytime soon.
I'm coming up. I'm getting in the car after this. I'm not at work tomorrow.
All right, you know what?
I'm going up north anyway.
Here's what I'm saying. I'm gonna say, Andy, right now, you and me, we're doing a one-on-one podcast. All right, you and me, Andy. That's all right. Because Steve's getting in the way, and I feel like I need to connect.
Steve, I will meet your dad tomorrow if I have to. I will do it.
Then you'll know two whole people with a Steam Deck.
Exactly.
Yeah, every person I know several people who have one now, but save one person. Every person I know who has one because I got one.
Mm-hmm.
And then decided to pick
you
one up.
influencer.
Yeah, that's why
they saw you spending half an hour trying to get it working on TV, and they were like,
I need this experience.
This is the kind of puzzle I need to solve in my life.
Did you ever hear the first time he tried setting up a dock or a dongle?
Incredible story.
And he didn't plug the power cable into the thing, and then comes back and says, it wasn't working. I don't know why. I was like, did you plug the power cable in? No, I didn't.
I didn't know I needed to do that.
Sometimes it's the simplest stuff. Right?
Yeah.
You don't have to on the Switch because it's already in the dock.
Yeah, you do have to do it on the Switch, though. The dock does nothing if you don't plug it into the wall.
It's got its spot, though.
You don't have to,
It's obvious.
What do you mean?
Right? It's obvious, like that you need to plug it in. Whereas, like on this, I'm like, oh, it's a USB hub. This is just so you can plug in something with a USB-C charger. I'm not gonna sit here and say it wasn't a dumb mistake, but I also feel like what Max is saying holds true.
It could have happened to anyone.
Yeah, it could have happened to anybody. It just happened to happen to my dumb ass. All right. So we're going to close things off with a doozy of an email here from one Vindication 8994, a.k.a. Frank, who wrote in and said, hey, Pete and Steve. First off, just want to say, huge fan of the show. I got a Steam Deck back in November of last year and started from the first episode all the way up to the current now. I had some interesting questions regarding last week's episode. But hey, Frank, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to all the episodes of the show. Good on you, buddy.
Thank you.
To start, I'm like you say, a gamer agnostic. I have a PS5, Xbox Series X, Alienware laptop and desktop, and my Steam Deck. So to say I'm a fanboy of one or the other is definitely not the case. Noticeably absent on that
Switch
list.
in that.
Nintendo
no Switch
Switch
in that.
Right? Wow.
Yeah.
That's such a weird one. Yeah. Having the Xbox over the Switch is surprising to me, but okay. Hey, you got to game the way you want to game.
Yeah, the Xbox. Yeah, do you know what? I'm not gonna.
It's the Game Pass machine. That's
true.
Thing.
It's true. It is.
And like the PS5, it was I need to play the exclusives. I want to play Ragnarok. So
of course.
The Xbox, the Steam Deck. The Game Pass machine is surely also the PC and laptop. They both do. They both play Game Pass.
Game Pass PC doesn't have all the same games. And the Xbox library is better.
What's missing?
I don't know the exact list, but it's different.
All the third-party titles. So you get all the first-party titles on PC, but there's a lot of third-party titles that are exclusive to Xbox. I think all the Personas are only on Xbox, for example.
All right, fine. Okay, you win.
You got some notable omissions.
I'm adamant. I can download Persona on Game Pass on PC.
Okay. Well, I don't know.
Keep reading the email and I'll correct you.
So with regard to the first part of the podcast and using a Linux-based OS as your primary OS, I was curious if there were any technical reasons to using Linux instead of Windows to game, or is the only reasoning just a more open platform and the fact that you don't have to pay for the OS?
Yeah, there's no real technical reason to use it over Windows. Some games, and it's very, very few games, have performance increases on Linux rather than on Windows. Most notably, last year, Elden Ring, they solved a lot of the micro stutters that happened in the Windows release because they made some modifications to the Proton layer. But yeah, for the most part, there's no reason to use Linux over Windows. If you're happy with Windows for PC gaming, then there's no need to move to Linux. It's just a preference kind of thing.
Next.
It's interesting, this question,
go ahead.
because it made me remember that Windows costs money. I think I got an old Windows key. I got a Windows key from a job, I don't know, 4 years ago that I've had and I've used about 10 times now. And not even that longer than 4 years ago, but still, I've been using the same Windows key, or I've just had it already installed, and I forget that it's something you have to buy, and it's quite expensive, isn't it, as well?
Yeah. It's not cheap.
It is quite expensive.
Bonus.
If you officially buy Windows 11 Pro, it costs £200. But you can find it. You can find keys around the place for a lot less than that.
All right. So next,
if you need Windows 11 Pro, you come to me. I'll sort you out.
Okay. Thanks, Max. Next, Steve, this is a question and challenge to you. As far as my media platform of choice for movies, I actually use Microsoft's Movies and TV storefront for all of my purchasing and viewing through my Windows PCs and Xboxes. gives a little bit of context about why he uses the service. The question is there a way you could get the Microsoft Movies and TV to run on your Steam Deck or a Linux-based PC, short of dual booting Windows on the device?
Yeah, I really struggled with this. So he mentioned Movies Anywhere in his email, and it is compatible with Microsoft Movies and TV. But I know, as he said, not all movies will come over. Certain, like I think there's some holdouts, like Universal, I think don't bring their movies over, which is a pain. Um, yeah, I looked into it. It only runs in a browser on Windows because of their shitty DRM, unfortunately. So if you want to watch Microsoft movies and TV, you have to watch it on Windows. The only other alternative I could think of was use a mobile device and a Chromecast. Like, that's an option if you
Sure.
really want to use it and cast it to a different screen. You can, if you've got like a monitor with 2 HDMI ports, plug a Chromecast into the second one and you can watch the movies that way. But I know if you're looking to run this on your laptop, on your gaming laptop, then it's not going to be an option, unfortunately.
Couldn't you theoretically use Plex? Like, the Plex must work on Linux, right?
You can use Plex, and you could acquire the movies elsewhere, but there's no way to watch the movies that he's bought in his Microsoft
you don't own
Movies
the
library.
files, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Does Edge not? Because I know that you can use Edge to stream Game Pass stuff, right?
I have not personally tried it, but according to Microsoft's FAQ, it's not officially supported on Linux. It only runs on Windows due to their DRM. It may work. It might be worth trying Edge out on your Steam Deck and seeing if you can watch these movies and then report back. Because I'd be interested to know. Also, makes sense as to why he picked the Xbox over the Switch.
Yeah,
He's got a big old library of Microsoft movies and TV to go back through.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes it an easy choice for like a set-top box. Okay, so then last off-the-cuff question. I see Intel and NVIDIA are currently crushing AMD in CPUs and GPUs, but yet game consoles and the Steam Deck all utilize some sort of AMD custom setting. Curious why you think that is.
Well, the Switch actually uses NVIDIA, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. It's ARM-based, rather than x86.
And the next Nintendo console will also be based on NVIDIA.
Yeah, they've got a long thing, haven't they? And also, there's few of the streaming ones are also NVIDIA, right? Like the newer Shield, I think, or the Razer one. I think is all NVIDIA.
The Shield is owned by NVIDIA.
An NVIDIA product, yeah. As far as I know, the only like handheld they're still pushing out with NVIDIA chips in is the Switch. And it's got like a really old Tegra in that was originally like Tesla's that they modified and adapted to use.
It's like small soldiers.
Yeah, it is like small soldiers. Yeah. And I could still somehow see the Switch getting full self-driving before Elon's cars. But I think there's a few reasons why people choose AMD over Intel and NVIDIA. I think cost comes down to it. AMD's the kind of the dark horse. It's coming from behind. They want to get those deals in with the manufacturers. They've also had like a long history and like lineage with game console makers, all the way back to the GameCube when they were ATI, and they provided chips for the GameCube's graphics, and then moved on to providing chips for, I think it was the PS4 era, was when they then moved to provide chips for all of them. So I think just history, and I think cost, and I also think performance per watt. Like the power draw of NVIDIA's and Intel's chips are just significantly higher than AMD's.
Okay. Then to close it out, Frank said, I realize this letter is maybe a little long, so reading it on the podcast may not work. Feel free to take bits from it, though, or just replying would be great. Thanks again for all the work you guys do. Sincerely, Frank. Frank, of course, we're going to read the email. You know, I skipped a little bit here and there, but of course we're going to read the email on the air.
Gave us half the show. So,
yeah.
You know.
Thank you. Thank you. Frankly, I tell people every week, you want to write in with a long email, you're just doing our jobs for us.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I would like to say that if you have sort of since November last year started and caught up the whole way. You know I exist, right? He knows I exist.
You weren't on the show
You
last
weren't
week.
on last week's show.
You didn't show up.
He was addressing things we spoke about last week.
All
That's
right.
all.
Okay.
Don't feel upset. You know. But
not
Max
upset.
is the
Not
permanent
upset.
addition
Not
addition
upset.
to the team.
You're gonna hurt.
I'll
You're
put.
upset.
I'll tack on and Max to every email.
Don't patronize.
Don't patronize the boy.
And one final handbrake from me on this show. All the 3 Persona games are on PC Game Pass. So.
Okay, there you go. Bold of you to use your handbrake at the end of the show. I'm just about to end the show.
Yeah,
I've
and just
still got.
as I remembered, Pete, neither of us did our homework, and I want to close out the show on this because I know people will ask in the comments because we did say we were going to last week. I know I didn't. I'm fairly sure you didn't download any of the Steam Next games that we spoke about and tried them to come back and do reviews on this week's show.
No.
So sorry about that.
We did not do that at all.
Installed 6 games that I never opened because Metroid Prime Remastered came out, and I was like, I started a thread on Twitter. I was like, I'm gonna play all these games. Got really excited, and then just never did it.
Wow. Yeah. No, I definitely was like, oh yeah, maybe we'll do that next week unless there's big news, and there was no big news. We just didn't do it. So sorry.
Are they installed? If I install the demo, can I play it?
No,
Or
they're
is
done
it
now. They don't work anymore.
You can play it. There is a way. They will be installed. If you put it in airplane mode.
Oh,
And if
brilliant.
you don't put it in airplane mode and it's connected, you can go to desktop and you can find it installed in your hidden Steam apps folder in your home directory.
Run the
and
exe.
you just open the executable.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, look at that. We just learned something new here.
Big man like Stephen Radford.
He's something else. He knows all kinds of stuff. He's always figuring stuff out.
Tips and tricks. You don't get that on any of the Steam Deck podcasts. They're gonna be like, what a shame Steam Next is over and you can't play those games. Nice try. On here we're like, nah, hack it, bro.
I know I spoke way too soon. I'm like, oh yeah, no, that's officially that's what happens. But Steve's out here, Frankensteining his way in through the back door and everything. So
that little hack for airplane mode is great if you share a library with someone as well. If they're playing on PC, just pop your Steam Deck in airplane
this
mode.
is why
you can play anything.
This is why
Play
we'll never
anything.
get an official sponsorship from Valve, though, right? Because you're telling people to do that shit.
My friend played the
Okay, don't
whole
do
of
that.
God
That
of
doesn't
War.
work.
My friend played the whole of God of War on my account while I was playing other things. It was cool.
Valve, I would never steal from you like that. I would never take advantage of this loophole. Please sponsor me. I'll fire my co-hosts. Okay. All right. Thank you guys for joining.
Weasel alert. Weasel alert.
Thank you guys for joining us here at another episode of the Steam Deck Podcast. Remember, if you want to write in and be a part of the show, just like everybody did in this week's question block segment, you can hit us up at flipscreen.games. That's our website where you will find links to become a Patreon supporter, to write in via email, to join our Discord, however you choose to get involved. We really appreciate your support of this and all of our sister shows. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Steam Deck Podcast. I've been Pete. He's been Steve. All the way over there's been Max. We'll see you next week for another episode of the Steam Deck Podcast, baby. Take it easy.